Hey there guys, thank you very much for tuning into another video. Tips for new drivers who are driving for the very first time. You need to know what type of fuel, how to open the cap. You don't want to leave it till you get there and then have to ask somebody. Are you aware that tyres have a minimum tread depth? Do you actually know how you would tell in real terms and not just answering that tell me question on the driving test? So the tyres need to be 1.6 millimeters as a minimum. 1.6 or less, that's going to, if you get pulled over, that's 3 points per tyre. You know you've only got 6 points in the first 2 years probation period. So if you get 6 points, you could end up losing your licence like that. Do you know what the correct pressure is? So you've got a little sticker on the inside of the passenger door. Normally you've got your handbook. Have you been over how to do that for the first time? Is it going to be better to have somebody else come with you and help you out? Did you do it with your driving instructor? You might want to ask if you're watching this video and you've not passed yet. Do you know what all the buttons do in your car? There is so many buttons. So many buttons. I've got 4 buttons here on my steering wheel. I've got buttons down here. I can turn traction off, eco off. I've got parking sensors I can turn off. I've got hazards. I've got door lock. Do you understand when the door locks, when it isn't? You know, when you're in certain areas, you might just want it locked while you're sat there. You've got all your different buttons there. So, and the other thing is, you know, and I'll come on to this in a little bit, but we really want to be aware of distractions. So my advice to you is to have a look at all these controls, in conjunction with your handbook if needed, or YouTube tutorials. Type in your particular type of car on YouTube and make sure, like I say, that you know your stuff before you go out for the first time. Make sure you are over prepared for that first time. The reasons for this video is because I am getting this question come up so much on the channel. You know, do you have any tips for first time drivers? Yes, many. So the first thing is try and master your mind, because it creates your feelings through your thoughts. Let's rewind that. I'm going to say, let's just think about that. Just stop. Try and master your mind, because the thoughts create the feelings. So if you're in control of a situation, you've took a step back before acting and deciding that you feel fearful or anxious or nervous, and you've actually assessed and thought, hang on a minute, this isn't as bad as I think it is. You know the saying, mind over matter? Yeah, take back control of this guy. Don't let it control you. The next thing is, don't be on a time limit. Driving against time is stressful for the best of us. So when I'm late for a lesson, I know that this for a fact affects my driving. There's always that sense of urgency and that sense of, if there's an opportunity, I'm more likely to take it maybe when I shouldn't, let's say. And so that's something to really be aware of. Plan your journey, know how long it's going to take to get there, and give yourself an extra 10. Next thing is plan your route. Know where you're going, the many ways you could use to get there, and what sort of things are you going to come across to get there. Is there going to be that big spiral roundabout? Is there going to be that satellite controlled crossroads? Is there going to be that bus lane you're unsure of? Try and identify what it is that you're going to come across and make sure you've done your homework on it first. Good place to start is my YouTube channel or the various other channels on YouTube. We live in the age of information now, folks, and there's no excuse for it. Get those fingers typing, find the answer, and find out what it is you need to know. Are you traveling alone? You might not want to travel alone for the first time. You might want to take a parent, a friend, family member with you out for the first time. You might want to practice in a quiet area. So let's say you live within an estate. If you live in a busy area, unlucky. But if you're living in an estate, you might just want to come out and do a couple of blocks. You know, like you did when you started your driving lessons. Because the difference is now you're on your own. So if you did make that error, well, some of you might be on your own. But if you did make the error, at least you're not far from home. You're familiar with the surroundings. And it just gives you an opportunity to just practice your core skills. Practice your core skills before you're in an area or a situation that is going to take that concentration away from the core skills. You know, situational things that can be happening around you, and then we forget about the core skills, as in, you know, the pedal work and the steering and the observations and things like that. So take your time. Don't leave it until that journey really matters and it's 10 minutes before and you've got to be there in 5 minutes. Be practicing earlier. Get that practice in. Okay, so things that you want to be practicing. I would be practicing. I mean, the car's going to be different. So number one, right now, this is massive. And so many people tell me about this, and I come across it so much in my day-to-day job as well. Unfortunately, most driving instructors, I say most, I don't mean all, they won't be telling you or teaching you to set the gas before you find the bite point. Now, I've done a video that works on this extensively with Doru, so head to the Doru's playlist if you're unsure what I mean by setting gas before clutch, because if you've been learning in a diesel car, and that's another thing, do know what car you learnt in when you're learning to drive. If you learnt in a diesel car, you could have a bit of a shock when you jump in your petrol. Now, common stories are, oh, I passed my test and now I don't want to drive anymore because I've lost confidence, because every junction I come to, I'm stalling. So make sure that you've gone over everything. You're used to what the gas sounds like, how much to set, because every car's different, what the bite feels like, what is your holding bite point, what is your driving bite point. Make sure you can identify when you've got that. And as you're rolling off the driveway, just gently easing on and off the brakes, just feeling your way into it. Do not leave it till the first junction to brake and then experience a sudden stop and there's the bus 2 inches off the bumper behind. Don't do that, guys. I would also encourage you to have a look at the emergency stop. Of course, make sure there's nothing behind you. They will not expect it, all right? And make sure you practice it at a relatively low speed, really, just because what it can do, it can help you to understand your car's limits, braking limits. Also, if there's an issue, it might highlight it if there's an issue with your braking. I know sometimes, second-hand cars, I've known it, especially when younger people are dealing with staff at particular garages, they can be sold with illegal tyres, problems, warning lights on. So do. And another thing, if you're buying a car, take somebody with you who's got some experience. So the main thing about why you might be feeling nervous or anxious about your driving, just stop for a minute. Just try and think about the very root cause. Do you think in your heart of hearts potentially there's something missing from your driving, from your understanding? Is it from your skills? Is it from your knowledge? Is it from a combination of both? Here's a list of things that I think things aren't covered in as near as much depth as they should be in terms of when people pass the test are on their own. Number one, people are taught to pass a test. So all the training is with test in mind, okay? Number two, you haven't necessarily looked at covering spiral roundabouts. Spiral roundabouts are the ones where you change lane. You do not change lanes. You follow the lane that you were in. And it's like a road on a roundabout that filters outwards and eventually it leads you to your exit. So your job is to know, number one, where do I want to go? And number two, what's the general direction that's in based on signs and lane markings on the floor and approach? That's a different video altogether though. But there's going to be lots of videos on spiral roundabouts on YouTube or similar. Faster speeds. I know from my experience, people don't spend nowhere near as much time as they need to on faster roads, changing lanes, checking making sure you're having a quick sideways glance before you change lanes. Things like that. The amount of times I picked up people who have done a test, failed a couple. Oh, how much work have you done on carriageways? I've done, probably about 2 hours all in all. What? So stop. So you was going to be on your own, driving around, and all in all, you'd done just a couple of hours training on travelling at such high speeds with such high risk. Are you kidding? But this is the common practice within this industry, unfortunately. So it's up to us guys to look after ourselves because somebody initially hasn't steered you in the right direction. All right. Is it because you don't understand what the speed limits are or how to keep up to date and what you know, if you don't see signs, what's the limit? Have you covered it? The theory test really is learning the answer. It's not learning to understand why the answer is what it is. So, you know, so just because you pass theory, it doesn't mean you're going to understand your road sign. And don't think for 1 second that you should. What about lanes, lines, systems? There's an A road, it could be a dual carriageway, and normally you've got a slip road to come on. But instead of a slip road, it's a T-junction to emerge onto. And you've got to get onto that carriageway from 0 mile an hour, and you've got to get up, and there's traffic coming at 70 and beyond, vroom, vroom, whizzing by. Things like that. Right, make sure you know what you're gonna do before you do it. Now remember, this video is for people who are feeling nervous or anxious about their driving. Yeah, some people go off and pass and be absolutely fine, even if they've never done it before. They'll apply a bit of common sense and a bit of, you know, a bit of initiative, a bit of key thing, confidence, and they'll be off and do it. But everybody's different. My top tips once you're actually driving. So this is once you've been out and once you've been driving around a little bit. Okay, so my first top tip is don't allow yourself to become distracted. All right, various ways we can get distracted. It could be the radio on too loud. It could be you could be driving for the first time with children. That's one. You've got to learn to sort of ignore them. If I'm in the car with my wife, she'll be talking to me and all of a sudden she's talking but I ain't listening. She could argue that that happens even when we're not driving. And I'll just blank it, because there's certain times and there's certain places within my driving when I have to only have one focus. You know, it might be that I'm planning to overtake a cyclist. It might be that I am approaching a busy roundabout, or I'm looking to change lanes and it's a complex situation. You know, so if you're distracted at those points in time, you're going to be in trouble. So another massive one is the mobile phones, isn't it, these days? Let's be honest, we've all got one and we can't stop blooming touching the thing, can we? It's going to be in the car. Now, you want a strategy with this. Before you even start, you need a strategy. You need to put it out of sight. Remember that saying, out of sight, out of mind. You want to turn it off. The vibration is so intense these days. It's a distraction within itself. It's going to make you want to grab it and look at it, and so let's not even bring that into the equation, and let's put it out of sight. Just put it somewhere. Type in on YouTube people who have been affected by through car crashes through the use of handheld mobile phones. So basically being distracted and it's caused a crash. I can tell you now from experience, watch these videos and it will absolutely change your mind about even thinking about doing something silly like that. When you see how it's destroyed other people's lives and their families' lives. Next top tip is the bubble. Okay, so have you ever heard of the bubble? If not, you want to check it out. There's the bubble around the car. All right, so if the next car gets too close, it's burst the bubble. So you want to be, there's the end of its bubble, and then there's a little gap, and then there's the beginning of your bubble. And so the gap should be more like that. And you want to be like that at all times. Obviously, if you're going slower, you want a smaller bubble. But remembering that the 2-second rule comes in at 40 mile an hour or above. Anything below, you need to use common sense and make sure that you can stop in time. Make sure that your positioning is not aggressive or comes across as you're tailgating at low speeds. Obviously, you can stop quicker at low speeds, but it's still something very, very worth thinking about. So research the bubble, guys. Incorporate the bubble into your driving. Do you really know what a dual carriageway is? Now, I'm going to keep it really, really short. A dual carriageway isn't something that's got 2 lanes. It can have 1 lane. It just needs a physical barrier down the middle. All right. So if you think a dual carriageway is 2 lanes and you're traveling at 70, but it's a single carriageway, but you think it's a dual carriageway, you're going to be doing 70 and you should be doing 60. Do know the true definition of a dual carriageway. Do get further training on motorway driving and using motorways, in particularly smart motorways, which are fairly new but very, very, very convenient, and most people aren't using them because they don't know, 1, that it exists, I think, and 2, aren't confident to use it. So that's generally the case with a lot of drivers. Next top tip is carry a pen and paper with you. Make sure your phone's charged. in case of an accident. Now, if you have an accident, make sure that you don't leave the scene, that you take photos while all the cars are still in position. So yeah, make sure you've always got your battery, you know, so you're able to take photos. When I had a rear shunt, I just took photos of absolutely everything. I took photos of their license, their driving license. I took photos of their car, behind the car, the lead up to the collision, if there's any tyre marks on the floor, and do contact the police, because then it can be documented if ever it needs to be covered in terms of insurance. Do make sure you've got the facility to take people's details. Deep breaths in that situation, because it is quite the adrenaline's flowing and it's not a nice situation. So it's something you want to sort of look at before, you know, it happens. And what I've got is a little cue card, and it just reminds me of the details that I need to take. So it just reminds me to ask for their name, their address, their phone number, their license, and it's just a little checklist for me personally. The next top tip is consider taking an advanced driving course. All right, there's lots of advanced driving courses out there. There's ROSBA, there's the IAM, that's the Institute of Advanced Motorists. I personally have done that one. In terms of recognised courses that are around that you guys could take part in, then you know that's something that you could be looking at. Keep watching my videos, the tutorials and the demos and stuff. Do understand as well why you're using your mirrors, and I've done a video on mirror signal manoeuvre. You know, which one's why and when, so hopefully that will clear that up, because I know that people generally are checking mirrors but they don't really know why they're doing it, or they're doing it just because Jeff said, you know, their instructor or whatever, Jeff said check that, so I just check that because that's what I do. No, we want to be checking them on almost on a need to know basis every single time, because it's going to change our driving style. Okay, so then to summarize, passing the driving test does not mean that you're the finished article. You're at the very beginning of your driving journey, okay guys? So do not put unnecessary pressure on yourself to be absolutely perfect. There's no such thing. Relax. Take it easy. Don't rush, all right? You're at the very beginning. The way that you want to summarize this in your mind is you're at the, like I said, at the very beginning of your lifelong driving journey. Or at least you should be thinking of it that way. Remember, mind over matter, keeping control of the situation. We all make mistakes, okay? I do to this day. I am not perfect. No driver is perfect. There is no such thing. So just remember that. And for me personally, this would be my most powerful tip. Never ever stop analysing and evaluating your own driving performance. Evaluating my driving performance has served me extremely well so far. I believe this is the way, the only way, that you can continually improve with your driving. For more of an in-depth look at some of the type of information that I've been talking about with you guys today, you can check out the DVSA's official guide to better driving. Okay, and that's available online. I'll pop the link in the description and you can check that out on Amazon. I believe it's about £7-8. It's an excellent read, and it just really touches on some of the points that I've mentioned here today in much more depth. It's got self-reflection part, self-analysis part, and I would well recommend that for you guys to give that a read. If you enjoyed the video today, then let me know. Let me know how you're getting on with your driving in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching and supporting me. Thank you to the Go2 Driving School patrons who make these videos possible. Thank you everybody, to all my subscribers for watching, and I will see you soon in the next video.